live.
Viking Hot Takes. Minnesota Vikings are 1-1 after a bad Monday night loss in Philadelphia. Eric, how you doing, man?
I was doing a lot better about 24 hours ago. Well, maybe even before that, because the game was already kicked off by then. But yeah, it's the Vikings are still technically winning the division. Yay!
Hey, we're 1-1, right? We're 1-1, equal good and bad. Maybe we shouldn't overreact, but hey, the name of this show is Viking Hot Takes, so y'all tune in and let's light this team on fire.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
What's your take? What's your take? Let's go a Viking on Viking Hot Takes.
It's a simple equation. Kirk Cousins plus primetime equals a loss. That's just basic math. But here's some more math, Eric. We've got 6 questions, 20 minutes. Are you ready to hop in?
I guess so. I mean, we got to get that bad taste out of our mouths. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Put it on the clock, Dave. We're going to start with the first question here, talking about the Eagles game. Eric, were these just growing pains we saw last night a sign of things to come? Or do you think this is just one bad game?
Uh, well, you have to. Yes, it's a bad game. It was a terrible game on just about every front. That first half, I mean, the defense allowed almost 350 yards. I think it was like 346 or something like that. Still ended up with over
Mm-hmm.
well over 400 yards allowed. It was
Mm-hmm.
and the lack of adjustments, they weren't there. I mean, O'Connell basically said that he and the staff were out coached, and you won't get any arguments from me because it just didn't seem like there were any adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. A couple improvements on the second half there, but again, when the Eagles are cruising, maybe they didn't have their foot all the way on the gas, and that was an alarming. It just seemed like, well, this worked last week against the Packers. We kept everything in front of us. Let's try it again. What could possibly go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles took exactly that. I mean, you could see they took what worked for the Packers, all the stuff in the slants and the flats, and they just kind of accentuated it with Jalen Hurts' legs. And of course, the offense didn't do themselves any favors either. And that's I think the Vikings probably got a little fortunate in week one, and they played, when they were well in control of the game. I think the game plan worked really well. But I mean, last night was almost the exact opposite, almost to the score. I mean, down to the
Yeah,
Vikings won 23-7, they
exactly.
lost 24-7. It was within a point. And again,
Well,
I'm not going to say that it was all Kirk Cousins' fault. This is where I'm going to blame everything because I'm a Kirk Cousins hater and all that stuff. No, it was really a true team effort of ineptitude. There were things to point out just about everywhere. But games like this that he played, especially in the second half with those three really bad interceptions. Well, the first one you could probably put on Jefferson. I think he kind of did. But the last two off his back foot, just kind of desperation heaves. I mean, that's what his
mm-hmm.
detractors can
Mm-hmm.
always point to. And especially when it has that equation, like you said at the top, the prime time on the road against a good team. And he stunk out loud the second half. They had a couple chances to get back into that game inexplicably. I mean, the Eagles
They just
should have put
didn't
the
take
Vikings.
them.
Yeah, and it just wasn't
Yeah.
there. They had four chances in the red zone, or I think within the 30-yard line, and 0 points out of it. That's the bottom line. Both sides of the ball were much too terrible to to win that game. But going forward, they're going to have to learn from it. They're going to have to make adjustments. Donatel just can't sit in these shells and these zones, even though it's probably a little beneficial to a lot of his personnel to do that more often than under the Zimmer defense. You have to keep them guessing. And the Eagles, to their credit on offense, kept the Vikings guessing left and right on offense, and they didn't get really anything going until the second half. So a little both. Hopefully, it's just more of an anomaly than a sign of what's to come.
Yeah, I think you laid it out well. See that, Eric, you always got the numbers to back it up. I'm not going to lie. I don't have any numbers from this game. All I have is my eyes, and my eyes are pretty concerned that these are growing pains. And I'm specifically looking on the defensive side of the ball. That defensive unit was 27th in the NFL in scoring last year, and it's
Mhm.
just not good. Sure, they made some upgrades. They brought in a Jordan Hicks. They brought in a Zadarius Smith, but that's not enough to cover up for what might be the worst secondary in the league, and a secondary that is going to continue to struggle as they continue to play a bunch of good wide receivers and quarterbacks, because those guys are just throughout the NFL. So I think we're due for one of these games, maybe 3 or 4 more times this season. Hopefully, it's not on the road against a great opponent, but that defense really worries me. The only really solution we have is to maybe get some young guys involved, and they're going to have to learn on the field. They're going to show growing pains as well. So it's growing pains for me. Maybe it's just not the Super Bowl contender we thought we were after being 1-0.
Yeah, it's funny how week one kind of it maybe is a little false positive for that, but yeah, I mean we got both extremes, that's for sure. All right, my first question
Yeah.
for you: after
Mhm.
such a terrible evening, were there any positives to come out of Monday night's game? I'm interested in your answer here.
The short answer is no. I'm not going to reach and say, oh, the punter was nice, or oh, we only had one penalty. They should have had a lot more penalties. Like not try to knock somebody out, bother Jalen Hurts enough to get a penalty on him. I'm not cheering for injury, but no penalties is not a positive. I mean, the offensive scheme sucked. JJ got locked down. Dalvin Cook was bad. The tight ends dropped a ton of passes. They didn't target Adam Thielen. The defensive scheme sucked. Cameron Dantzler got benched. Wide open guys running down the field. They couldn't tackle Jalen Hurts. There were no actual positives to come out of this game. And anybody trying to say that, oh, there are some positives is just reaching, man. Admit they sucked, and let's see them recover from a bad loss rather than trying to make this loss not so bad.
Fair. I'm still giving the special teams props. That was good. The punt, Ryan Wright was good. He was good. He had 5 punts, averaged 50 yards, and his net punt. I can't remember exactly what his net punting average was. Had 3 punts inside the 20. He had a basically, those old Madden coffin corner drills. Remember that when you used to
Yeah.
have the rings? He had like a 500-point punt there. Though it was great. But that's it. You get outside like we already covered both pretty well, and you listed off a laundry list, and that's just the beginning. I mean, of
Yeah.
both offense and defense, there were a lot of bad areas, but special teams is overall pretty good. Greg Joseph made his one extra point. Yeah, maybe you could say. Well, I mean, the block field goal is pretty nice. That P2 coming across there, but okay, we got to talk about the block field goal quick. Like Chris
Okay,
Boyd.
let's talk
Randall,
about the
what do
block
you run?
field goal.
What do you run? A 4.45 or something like that, like a 4.4 something, I think, in the
Yeah,
combine.
yeah.
And he's like a tracks. He got like second in state in the 100 meters in high school. How do you get caught by the punter? Like I know he had a
That's
little
my
bit of a running start.
Longhorn.
Yeah, but I mean that dude. Oh, it was
But
hard.
that's what
And
I'm
what's
trying
it?
to
Aaron,
say is every
yeah,
good
yeah.
moment was countered by a bad moment.
It
Cameron
was almost
Dantzler had his
immediately
own
canceled.
drive and
Yep.
then let up a huge touchdown. Irv Smith caught a touchdown pass and then dropped another touchdown pass.
Oh.
We block a field goal and then we can't even return it. We intercept the ball and we can't get any points out of that drive. So there's no positives for me. I don't care about the punter. Let's
You're
go
100% right that every positive was canceled out immediately, almost by a negative. But
immediately.
shout out to Aaron Sipas, their punter. He's like Australian rules football guy. Maybe you need one of those. He's a good tackler.
Eric, how many elite players does Minnesota have?
This is a great question, and I had to think about it a little bit. And I think there's only one that you'll get zero debate from everyone, and that's Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
I mean,
Hmm.
you can argue whether he's 1, 2, 3. I mean, but you drop him out of the top 5, you're insane. Like he is
Yeah.
absolutely he is the cream of the crop when it comes to wide receiver, no doubt about that. I mean, but
Yeah.
after that, everything is debatable. I think personally, I would still consider Daniil Hunter in there. He hasn't had a great start to the season. He was surprisingly quiet
Hmm.
last night. I thought he got shut down pretty well. Had a couple
Yeah.
nice rushes and a couple moves, but they out schemed him. But I think he's still there. But I mean, if he keeps his kind of being quiet, and maybe his best years are a little behind him, and he isn't in that top tier of pass rushers. I mean, he's not at the pre-pectoral injury JJ Watt level, because those guys, there are a couple of players that are definitely getting the quarterback more often than him. But I mean, I guess it feels weird, but you could probably call Brian O'Neill an elite right tackle, just because if you look at the combination of, what right tackles in the league would you take over him, like due to his dependability, his health, his durability, and age. And yeah, Dave's saying, maybe Harrison
Yeah.
Smith because I'm wearing his hat. Still a very
Okay.
good, still one of the better safeties, but I think we can all kind of admit he makes sweet hats. I mean, he's got a career after football for sure. Him and Unreal they can keep on designing clothes, but I think that's maybe a little fast. And and of course maybe Ryan Wright after last night. He's elite. I,
Wow.
I
Wow.
just gotta
So,
keep giving the special teams props. I gotta find.
what is
I'm a
that?
positive guy.
That's four elite players, five elite
Yeah.
players.
I mean, but only one guaranteed.
Yeah.
You could argue both sides of it. Yeah, but again, I like the question because it calls into question.
Hmm.
You need blue chippers to win in the NFL, and the Vikings might not have a ton. They have a pretty good overall team, but if you're going to be in that upper echelon, I don't think they're there yet.
So you didn't mention Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, you can probably throw him in there too. But I'm still
You
upset
didn't.
with him after last night. He had a poor game last night. See, again, this is when we're doing this right after the game. The emotions are still raw.
You didn't mention Eric Kendricks.
Ah, still one of the best coverage guys in like side to side. I don't know. He's like I mean when you have someone like Micah Parsons in the league now, like it's a different kind of echelon in there. And again, these are all yeah, you can definitely mention them too. But yeah, like
Yeah,
there's only one I
and
would guarantee.
people are starting to talk about Micah Parsons as the second best defensive player in the league right now behind Aaron Donald. So here we are. All of a sudden, we look old on both
Yeah.
sides of the ball at some key positions, and that's a little concerning to me. I think that goes back to my first question. This might be more than one bad game. Let's go to the next question.
All right. So after we're 2 weeks in here, what is one personnel change that you would make for the Vikings after the first two games?
There's a lot of options here. I'm not going to steal all of them because I think you've got a couple. I'm sure you have a couple options on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to go offense and
Okay.
simply say more 11 personnel. Please, Kevin O'Connell, you came here from the Rams. You won a Super Bowl with the Rams. They ran 11 personnel 90% of the time. And all of a sudden, you're trying to switch to more two tight end sets because you have Johnny Munt and Irv Smith Jr. coming off a torn ligament in his leg. No, stop it. We've got KJ Osborne. We've got Adam Thielen next to Justin Jefferson. Use those guys. Use more 11 personnel and have faith in that system. Be a little bit more like the Rams, please. Stop trying to do your own thing. Stop trying to get all cute with these running back screens and these tight end deep balls. Just go with the wide receivers and run your offense out of that set. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes some good points. And I mean, our old pal that used to work for Star Tribune, Master Tesfatsi, and he had a great tweet I had to retweet last night. It looked like Adam Thielen was just out there getting a cardio workout yesterday until
I
the fourth
mean,
quarter. Like get the dude involved. Like get Osborne. What does Osborne have, like 40 yards so far this year? Like run that
yeah,
11
I mean,
personnel.
design
Play to your
design
strengths.
plays for them. Yeah, play to
Yep.
your strengths.
Yep. And so, but I'll touch quickly on one. I think the personnel change that a lot of people, including myself, were kind of barking for last night is, they drafted that safety, Lewis Seen. Again, I get he was out week one and maybe he's coming back a little slowly. He got one defensive snap yesterday. And again, like, and Bynum,
Yeah.
you could debate on, the long touchdown that they gave up to Watkins last night. It looked like it might have actually been on Dantzler, and that might have been one of the reasons that Dantzler got pulled in favor of Evans in the second half. Was it looks like one was expecting cover 4 and the other was expecting cover 2. Either way, Bynum, I hate the what was it, Hurts' second touchdown. Bynum made contact with Hurts at about the 5 or 6, and then did the pull. Hey, I'm gonna get the ball. I'm gonna get the ball. Make
He's
the
a
tackle first.
240-pound running back / quarterback. Why
And
are
did
you
you know he
trying to
could
strip
squat
the
600
ball?
pounds? Yeah, exactly. He
And
squatted
and
he
and
squatted him in the end
you're
zone.
the first defender there.
Yes,
You tackle him.
exactly.
The second defender is the one who's going for the rip.
Yes, and again, and it doesn't have to be seen instead of Bynum all the time. I thought we were going to get some of these
Yeah.
3 safety looks. I mean, do we really like? Are we going to miss Chandon Sullivan in the slot that much so far? I mean, I think he's been targeted probably 14 or 15 times through the first 2 games. Again, he hasn't given up huge plays, but it's always open in the slot, and it's definitely not all Sullivan's fault. It's probably a lot of the scheme, but yeah, get your best players on the field. I think that's what we're kind of arguing about here on both sides of the field. Put your best people in the best position to succeed, because like we just kind of touched about on your last one, like there isn't a plethora of elite players that we can just trot out there. This isn't the Rams F them picks kind of people, like they're they're going to have to get some more out of these players, and if they aren't putting their most talented players on the field, it is a little frustrating. Again, we're 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
We're not trying to jump to too many
Deep breath.
conclusions. Yeah, exactly.
Deep
If we
breath.
can't do this for 15 more weeks, if we're all going to flip out every time something goes wrong. Things are going to go wrong. Things will go right again, hopefully, too. But there are going to be other games like this. Hopefully not as bad on a lot of different fronts, but it's going to be difficult going forward. So, yeah, but again, I think as long as this team can take the lessons that they learned from this ass kicking, basically, on Monday night, then I think they're in okay shape.
Yeah.
But if they can't change with how they're being scouted, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Next question. Eric, what would a loss to Detroit mean for the 2022 season?
Well, I could tell you what it would mean for Vikings Twitter. I mean, like I wish I could have saved like a bunch of the tweets from last Sunday. Like all the positive response. Like, oh, I don't know how many times I saw throughout different social media posts where it's like, this I have just a feeling about this team, like this, all the vibes and all the good, like that's like this team just feels different.
Oh,
They
the
started off the bat,
slime, the
yeah, the
MVP,
slime,
Kevin O'Connell
yeah.
getting yeah.
Exactly. It was all good vibes. And I bet those exact same people were jumping off the bandwagon last night. Well, season's over. The Kirk sucks. Everyone sucks. They're getting out coached, outplayed. So again, it's something in the middle. But another loss at home to Detroit, who again, I think they're a much improved team. And if you want to talk about good vibes, we've had some Twitter best DM conversations in our groups about what a culture Dan Campbell has built, and again he's the belle of the ball. He got on Hard Knocks. He says he is the football guy's crush. Like he is that guy. But I still think the Lions are still a year or two away from being true contenders. That offense looks good. They're going to put up some points, and if the defense doesn't make some adjustments, it could be a very long day for the Vikings defense. But if they lose that at home on Sunday, I think it starts to kind of make you have to change your perspective, because then it's going to London, to New Orleans, then you're turning around on a lot of travel, and again, like the Vikings should be favored in the next 3 games. So if they start off that streak and with a loss, it's there will be a lot of gnashing in teeth and wailing and complaining, and I can't say I complain it, because the Vikings should beat the Lions. I think they're 5.5 point favorites, even though I think they opened at 7. But after Monday night, I'm sure it dropped a point or two. But so it should be an interesting game. It should be a fun game. I think it should be a back and forth. I'd probably go with the over. But yeah, I don't want to find out what a loss would mean. So let's hope they take care of
Yeah,
business.
well, I asked this question because we're kind of playing Detroit at the wrong time. If we win, oh, it's just Detroit. If we lose, I feel like a lot of people are going to jump on that Lions bandwagon, and
Oh, for sure.
for me, I think Detroit has shown enough. They played one close one close loss, one close win. Well, 14 points, but it got a little close there at the end. I think they're competitive, and beating a competitive team should be praised. So I think a win should allow us to take Minnesota very seriously and treat the Eagles game as a blip on the radar. At the same time, narrative don't die that easy, and the Lions are the Lions. So it's gonna cause a little bit of shockwaves. And I don't think it's just on Twitter. I don't think it's in the national media. I think it's in the locker room too, where they're going into this game at home expecting a win. So you better go get it. You better go prove that you can recover from a bad road loss in a game that you should win. And we'll see
Yeah,
what happens.
and all of those aforementioned great vibes in the preseason after week one, it's going to be hard to come by in the locker room if they lose two in a row
Yeah.
like that. For sure. All right, my
Yeah,
last
which
question
is
for you,
fine.
kind of
Adversity is good. Go for it. Go for it.
exactly. Yes, they weren't going to go 17-0. We knew that. So all right,
Right.
this my last question kind of rolls in to the kind of piggybacks on yours. After the next two games here, what will the Vikings record be when they return from London after the Saints game?
Oof. The easy answer is 1-1, right? We're 2-2. We beat either Detroit or New Orleans. So that's probably the answer. I will say the second most likely scenario is that we win both and we're 3-1. I think we've seen enough from our offensive talent and our defensive talent in previous seasons, not just this season, to say that we should beat Detroit and New Orleans, or at least there's a more than 50% chance that we win both of those games. And then obviously the doomsday scenario is if we lose both. So I will say the record will be, I'll say 2-2, but I'm leaning towards that 3-1 that Brian just put in the comments. What about you?
I'm still leaning towards 3-1, but if they do lose that game on Sunday, and especially if they look anywhere near as bad as they did on Monday night, it's a short week against an up and coming team. There's definitely that scenario. Then you go into
Yeah.
London with
And
things
then you go into
kind of
London.
falling off. And the Saints, who knows? I mean, last time we played the Saints, it was a lot different defense, but Mr. Kamara scored 6 touchdowns. So I would rather not see that again. So yeah, all three are definitely on the table. I'll keep my purple colored glasses on for a little longer, and I'll stay 3-1. I don't feel great about it. I wouldn't bet on it, but I think that's what they're
Is 2-2 a failure? Like,
No, you're
and
still in it.
the order is important here, because if they lose to Detroit and then beat New Orleans in London, that's a lot different than if they beat Detroit and then come back from London with a loss. So it'll be really interesting. This is a great time to find out what's actually going to happen with the 2022 Vikes.
Yeah, it's an exciting time of year. As bad as Monday was, there's still plenty of football to throw all sorts of takes on it.
Dave, are you 3-1?
I'm favoring 3-1. Yes. Could they be 2-2?
Okay.
Yes. Could they be 1-3? Yes. But
See,
I'm
so we
going to
flamed
take
the
the
Vikings,
positive.
and then we ended the show with the purple colored glasses y'all want to see. Y'all calling us Debbie Downers at the start of the show.
3-1, baby. They're going to correct it. This
We'll
is
be
that
here
one gimme
all
game.
season long. Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey,
Neither of those two games are in prime time, so or technically on the road, so we're great.
that's all I got. Just beat Detroit. Eric, you got anything to close?
Nope. We're excited. Yeah. Just next game up. Let's throw the tape out on Monday. There's not a lot of great stuff to talk about. Hopefully next week at this time we'll have a W to talk about.
Dave, it's all yours.
Remember, if you're in the Twin Cities area on the 29th at Lake Monster Brewing, our partner, they're having the Monster Bash with a special cave of 6 different unannounced brews that they have, along with their hot apple cider and live entertainment starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, going into the wee hours of the evening. Should be a great time. And for Climb in the Pocket, tomorrow we have Vikings Happy Hour with a special guest from Detroit, no less. And we're going to be talking about that. We are talking with former player and special guest pardon me.
Don't leave us hanging.
Yeah. Glover, what's his first name?
Glover Quinn.
Glover Quinn.
Glover Quinn, yes.
Glover Quinn.
Glover Quinn.
And so we're going to have Glover Quinn tomorrow night on Happy Hour. It should be interesting. We'll be looking at what he thinks of the new Detroit Lions Kumbaya and their,
restore the
team.
roar.
Yep.
Oh,
And
rainbows and butterflies.
And all how that's going. And then, of course, myself and Darren, is your two old bloggers on Saturday with your pregame show for the Vikings and Detroit.
Nobody cares about a lack of false starts. Just tell me. What do you want the coaches to say in the film room? You think they're going to sit down and just watch everybody stay still and say good job? Come on.
Hey, they're going to put a gold star up on the board. Hey, offensive line, gold star. Boom.
Gold star.
Hey,
give him a helmet sticker.
Garrett Bradbury, hang the banner, a 60 PFF grade. Okay, we got to get out of here before we get in trouble. All right, we'll see everyone next week. Thank you so much for I love that someone suggested Ted Glover is going to be the guest tomorrow. Okay, great work in the comments, everyone. Love it. Love you following along, and we will see you next time. Skol!
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, the Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.